What's going on, Breaking Brown family? How is everybody doing today? Get your libations, get whatever you need to get through this moment, this era of black politics. Please get whatever you need. Listen, let me put this up for those of you who don't know. I think most everybody knows, but I just want to keep reminding everybody. When affirmative action was white, that is going to be our book. For those of you who are book club people and will be showing up for the book club, please, it's about time to wind this one up. It will be the 23rd. That's a Thursday. So we will have the Monday show. We will have the Wednesday show. Then we will have a Thursday show. Thursday show will be the book club show. So let's get that one in gear and finish it up. I'm just rereading it because I've already read it. So I'm just kind of rereading it, and I'm trying to reread it all the way. But you know, if it might have to go through a few of my notes, but that's what I'm doing. Bam! Please hit that like button for me. Please hit that like button for me. I would appreciate it. Cost you nothing to hit the like button. Cost you no money to hit the like button. You can also go to subscribe to Brown and add your name to the email list as well. Please do that for me, fam, if you get the opportunity. If you have not done it, hit that bell as well. That bell is what gives you a notification. So you have to wait up and be like, where's Yvette? She always late. And that's the truth. That is the truth. I tell you no lie. But please get the bell so you'll just know. You won't have to sit around. And I know sometimes the bell unbails you for some reason. I don't know why. But just hit the bell again for me. So if you want to donate, you can go to donatebrown.com. Some of you reached out to me about some of the t-shirts. Some of them are back ordered in sizes. Sent out smalls, mediums. That's about it right now. Waiting for the other ones to come in. Also, fam, patreon.com/ycarnell. You can do that as well if you want to support. And you can always un-Patreon or whatever you want to call it at any given time, fam. So, you know, we have a lot to talk about. You know, we have a lot that is going on. But I wanted to talk about one thing, but I feel like before I talk about that one thing, I'm going to talk about another one thing first. It happens like that sometimes, because sometimes the news just happens. Sometimes the news just happens and you plan on talking about one thing and you realize you're going to have to spend a little bit of time talking about another thing. Now, this is going to take but about 5 minutes. But I really wanted to bring this up, fam, because I think it's important. I think it is important. Please hit that like button for me too, fam. It is important to just bring up the hypocrisy sometimes. Sometimes you just have to. We don't have a choice. We don't make these rules. We don't do any of this stuff. It just is what it is. So I see this today. 25 men voted to advance most restrictive abortion ban in the country. The female governor signed it. But that's not what I saw earlier. Earlier, I just kept seeing these pictures. I kept seeing pictures of all these white men. And I was like, why is everybody showing me the white men? And they signed this. And it was all the white men signed this. And there was a whole bunch of men. And the men done oppressed the white women. And that is awful that they did that. That we are all under the same oppression of men. But what is this? Wait a minute. Let me just. She looks like she could be your Aunt Betty, don't she? Don't she? Now, I'm not coming down anyway. I don't want anybody to think I'm making an abortion argument here. I'm making a white family argument here. You know, I'm making a family argument here. Don't talk about these men. And I'm not even talking about her in terms of her role as governor. I'm talking about all the other. Look, all these men, they all have white mothers. They all, you know, for the most part, probably have white wives or white girlfriends. They could very well. If it were to be different, if people wanted it to be different, then the white women could take a stand. What this is telling you is that Alabama, these white female Republicans agree with their white male counterparts. Stop making this into some kind of we're all oppressed by white men argument. No, that's your family. That's family that claims you. See, the difference with us is that people say, well, we have a lot of white. Yeah, but they don't claim us. We don't have access to any white wealth. We're not influencing her. We're not doing that. See, honestly, These women who are married to these men and other white Republicans, they can say, listen, I'm divorcing you over this. You feel so strongly about it. You can say, I'm leaving you. A friend told me that day. They can say, I'm leaving you. This means too much to me. They agree. We have to stop allowing them, before I get to what I'm talking about, we have to stop allowing them to say, see, we have the same problem as you. Our problem is white men. No, that's your family. That's your brother, your father, your husband, your everybody. And you could stop this if you wanted to. You're not stopping it because you don't want to. I'm not taking a position on that. I'm just saying, stop when you talk about, stop talking about white men when what you're really talking about is white family. That includes everybody. That includes both husband and wife and children and father and all connected networks. Ain't nobody buying this. Ain't nobody buying this, especially when they got Aunt B up here signing the paperwork. I don't ever want to be around paperwork. I don't like paper. Anytime black people have to do paperwork, it's a problem because it's something that they're trying to accuse us of or something. It's a problem. I don't want to be bothered with this. Please understand. I want no part. You got grandmama up there doing this. Don't talk to me about black men. She's signing that thing and looking like she about to go make an apple pie after this whole thing is finished. Don't talk to me about, oh, it's just the men. They just keep us down as women. No, that's your husband, baby. What you talking about? So anyway, I wanted to say that. I just had to say that because it was so telling and it was so hypocritical. It's so crazy for the liberal women to say, look at what the white men did to us. And this and Aunt B over here signing paperwork. Don't make no sense. So now we're gonna get to the subject. I don't want to go on that too long because it just struck me. Like, have you seen the governor? So let's go to this. I wanted to go to Biden because I really don't want to address Biden 2 days in a week, but I feel like I have to. I don't feel like I have a choice in this situation. And so he came out and he tried to address the crime bill. And he said mass incarceration comes from state mandatory minimums and adds that Black Caucus supported it and it did not generate mass incarceration. That's what he's saying. It did not generate it and you know what? The black people supported it too. And listen, that's a complicated conversation, but we know here as Breaking Brown family that we have done what we need to do all the time to hold the CBC accountable. But just because the CBC did what it needed to do for the reasons that it thought it needed to do them, in addition to having a black community, I'm going to have a show about the CBC. I think I should do that and what they did. And a lot of complicated reasons why they did it. Some good, some bad. But you ain't have nothing to do with that. That's not your situation. They did not require you to be the architect of that. So when he said that, I understood immediately the game he was playing. And the game he was playing was first and foremost, I'm finna throw these Negroes under the bus. Do you see how quickly you got thrown under the bus? Do you see, CBC, how quickly Joe Biden used you for cover? The last episode, y'all, was so happy that Joe Biden called me on the telephone. And he told me that he was going to run. And he's comfortable around Negroes like we're an alien species. That was last show. And I brought up something about Biden in a previous show. But I don't really think that I kind of hashed it out. And sometimes, and some of you all are you email me and you put comments in the comment section. And sometimes it's really good criticism. And the good criticism that I got this time was, Yvette, you didn't really go into one aspect of what you said deeply enough. You kind of skirted over it, and I understand why you did, but you have to go deeper into it. And I thought about it, and I said, yeah, you know what? You're right. I didn't go deep enough into this. And in terms of how we have to understand Joe Biden, we have to understand who he partnered with and what that signaled to white America about what not only he was doing, but what he was prepared to do, who he was allied with, and who he was acting on behalf of. I have to go deeper into Strom Thurmond, ladies and gentlemen. There is no choice about what has to happen for us to understand what Joe Biden was doing, how he was doing it, and why he was doing it, what he was signaling to people in the South, what he was signaling to racists about what he was prepared to do, because you have to understand, One of the things that you have to understand is that Joe Biden has been running for president for about 30 years, since the 80s. How much of a failure do you have to be to keep trying? You've been trying to do this. You got accused of plagiarism, and you admitted it, but you said it wasn't your fault, or you didn't mean no harm. Right? That's fine. I don't got. Hey, do what you do. But you've been doing this forever. It's like a pastime running for president. And so I figured one of the things that I want to do, I want everybody to really understand who Strom Thurmond was. Because you don't really understand who he partnered with to expedite his own personal ambition. We don't really understand because it's been a long time since Strom died. He died at 100. Long life for somebody like that. But we really don't understand who he was. And I started thinking about it, like, I don't even know if like millennials or Gen Xers who weren't really tapped into politics really understand who this man was. So I wanted to bring up an article about like Strom Thurmond and his filibuster and what that filibuster meant and what it signaled. And then we're going to come back to Joe Biden. So this is the article, The Racist Filibuster We Can't Afford to Forget. This was a while ago, but 2016. But I want to bring it up because it set a record. Imagine. The filibuster was carried out for more than 24 hours to prevent the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1957. It was the last stand by a group of senators who used the Senate rules to maintain a state of racial injustice that befell the United States for nearly a century. It's a lyric of intolerance, an epic poem of sorts on institutionalized racism. That's what it is. That's what it is. So what we have to do, let's just go straight through this. Here's what he was saying about it. Because people love to couch their racism in like, I don't really mean it that way. I mean it about states' right. I don't mean it that way. But then you go on and you say something. He says the Civil Rights Act simply means that it's another effort on the part of this president to dominate the country by force and to put into effect these uncalled for and damnable proposals he has recommended under the guise of so-called civil rights. And I tell you, the American people, from one side to the other, had better wake up and oppose such a program. And if they don't, the next thing will be a totalitarian state in the United States. You see how they do? You see how they have always put totalitarianism in the same breath as civil rights. If you make black people citizens, it will be death and damnation for America. It will be Marxism, socialism. Even if regardless of how you feel about any of those ideologies or any of that, no, it's going to be the end. It's going to be dictatorship. It's going to be dictatorship. We will all be under the foot if you do this for the Negroes. But, the thing about racists is they can only let that go for so long before they start really talking and really saying stuff out their mouth. So let's just go a little bit further about what the platform was. Let's just provide a little context that was in the article. But almost a decade before Thurmond's filibuster, Southern state separatist leaders had revolted in opposition to President Harry Truman's civil rights platform in 1948. Democrats dubbed themselves Dixiecrats and spoke about taking back their country that was being turned into an unrecognizable dictatorship. Does that sound familiar? See, what you have to understand, ladies and gentlemen, what you have to understand is that nobody ever took away the country of these people, but they did take away our country from us, and that's why we use the flag, because this is our country. We're taking our country back. The Tea Party had it wrong. No, it's us. It's us who built it with free labor and have been locked out for generations. We are the one who needed that moniker, not you. You ain't never had nothing taken from you. Ain't nothing ever been stolen. You ain't never been pickpocketed, robbed, pushed in an alleyway. None of that happened to you. But this is This is what he was standing. This is what Strom Thurmond was standing against. Anti-lynching law. Understand this is 1948, please. Military desegregation, equal employment opportunity, elimination of poll taxes. 1948. Do you understand that we ain't never been free? We get re-enslaved. Understand that. This is what this is telling you. You have to understand that. Now here comes the kicker. Here is the kicker. This is what he said. This is not what we didn't say this. Because they always come out and say it. They always come out and tell you how they really feel. There's not enough troops in the army to force Southern people to break down segregation and admit the nigger race into our theaters, into our swimming pools, into our homes, into our churches. What kind of God do you serve? There is not enough troops. I'm not letting them N-words in. I'm not going to do it. That's what he said. And let me just say this. I think it's better if you hear it. So just give me a moment. I'm going to play this. It's a quick clip. It's not going to last long. And I might let it repeat one time. I want you to understand what this, before we talk about it, before we actually get into it, I want you to hear, this is Joe Biden's buddy now. That's who we partner with in the Senate. I want you to listen to this.
Into our theaters, into our swimming pools, into our homes, and into our churches. There's not enough troops in the army to force the Southern people to break down segregation and admit the nigger race into our theaters, into our swimming pools, into our homes, and into our churches. There's not enough troops in the army.
Now, that's your buddy, right? Did y'all hear that? That's your buddy, that's your fan, right? That's your fam. See, what we don't do is we don't understand politics in terms of consequences to them and benefits to us. So you'll say, well, Yvette, the Democrats have to win and we have to just take a L. We have to take a loss because, no, we don't. We don't, because we don't got to do that. Who made that a rule? Like, it's like playing Uno and you made up rules. That's not a rule. There are no rules in politics. No rules. You don't get to be that person. And Obama picked that person. Obama picked this man. And understand, this was a whole gang of them. This wasn't just one person. This was, you go back to that period about crime. You're talking about Obama. I mean, you're talking about the one Obama chose in terms of Biden. But you're talking about Rahm Emanuel. You're talking about Bill Clinton. You're talking about all the Democrats who were deciding how we're going to win elections. And we don't care how we win. We will make a deal with the devil if we had to. Didn't FDR make a deal with the devil? Didn't he make a deal with Dixiecrats and locked us out in terms of farm workers? We're going to talk about that next week when affirmative action was white. He made his own deal with the devil. Ain't nobody ever afraid of throwing us under the bus so they can maintain power. So why should we be afraid? It don't make no sense. Doesn't make any sense that we should, we just gotta get somebody elected who's gonna take out Trump or what you mean? No, we gotta get somebody elected who's gonna do the right thing by us. That's first and foremost. That's why we always talk about a black agenda. This man running around here talking about, he calling us the N-word in the 1900s. He wasn't even talking in the 16, 17, 18. He's in the 90s calling us N-words and talking about ain't enough troops. And you're going to listen, part of what happened in terms of the Confederacy, part of what happened in terms of throughout the history from the Confederacy to Strom Thurmond, part of what happened is that this country never cut people off. Honestly, when you look at the Confederacy, they were traitors to this country. Like, I would say, not only did you don't get to vote. Like, you don't get to, you abdicate for life, all access to political power. Not only do we take away the Confederacy's land and their means and everything like that, we give that now to the former slave. And y'all can't even vote. Like, I banished you for like 3 generations. But since you didn't do that, now they're back. And they're calling us the N-word. Ain't enough troops. That's who Biden coupled up with. And he coupled up with him intentionally. This wasn't nothing that just, well, it just kind of, we don't know, it just whatever. No. And then Strom Thurmond, I don't know what happened, but he had a child with the black maid, didn't he? Now the maid was 16. Do you think I'm just asking, a maid can act that way can act out? What do you think happened there? I'm just asking. Never got never got the benefits of like having a senator father or whatever. Never claimed that child, right? That's where we are. And should there be any confusion, because you always want to make sure there's no confusion about what the intentions were and what was said and why it was said, I want to go back really quick to Biden's words, his words, what he said, and come back to it and have the conversation.
There's a second thing that we all have agreed upon, and that is, unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing, because they literally, I yield myself 3 more minutes, because they literally have not been socialized. They literally have not had an opportunity. We should focus on them now, not out of a liberal instinct for love, brother, and humanity, although I think that's a good instinct, but for simple, pragmatic reasons. If we don't, they will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now. And Madam President, we have predators on our streets that society has, in fact, in part because of its neglect, created. Again, it does not mean because we created them that we somehow forgive them or do not take them out of society to protect my family and yours from them. They are beyond the pale, many of those people. Beyond the pale. And it's a sad commentary on society. We have no choice but to take them out of society. And the truth is, we don't. There's a second thing that we all...
Okay, now let's go really quickly. He said, understand what he said. We're going to go to part 2. But understand what he said. These are predators. They will be on the street in 15 years. Even though we created them, we got to take them off the street. That's what we got to do. It's our responsibility. I'm just protecting my community. That's what he said. I don't care. I understand we might have created them, but I'm going to do that. Now, mind you, I want you all to know that all of this was based on false, fake, fraudulent study. Crime was on the edge of ticking down. This was all fake. This was all manufactured nonsense. But I want to take you to the other part of what he said, just so you get a clear idea.
We must make the streets safer. I don't care why someone is a malefactor in society. I don't care why someone is antisocial. I don't care why they become a sociopath. We have an obligation to cordon them off from the rest of society, try to help them, try to change their behavior. That's why we do in this bill. We have drug treatment and we have other treatments to try to deal with it. But they are in jail, away from my mother, your husband, our families. But we would be absolutely stupid as a society if we didn't recognize the condition that nurtured those folks still exist, and we must deal with that. And I think there's a consensus among Republicans in that. Old barbed wire Republican conservatives just want to hang them high. Even those folks are saying, hey, we got to deal with the root cause of this. Not one or the other, but separately. And liberal Democrats who used to say, let's look at the sociological underpinnings of why this occurred, and we have to, they're now saying, hey, look, we got to take back the streets. We'll make that fight later. So there is a consensus. I hope the remainder of the discussion, as we close out the debate in this bill, we can end that old fight. We can put it behind us. Hopefully we have The senator from West Virginia said this is a historic moment on this bill, a consensus being reached. I think it is, but I think it's a historic moment for a political reason as well. Hopefully we will end the discussion about whether or not Republicans are Neanderthal and only want to hang them high, and Democrats are wacko liberals and only want to look at the causes. Those days are gone. Evidence of that, the Democratic senator from Delaware and the Republican conservative senator from Utah are united in a Biden-Hatch crime bill that does all the things that I just said. So as one of my relatives who remain nameless would say, God willing and the creek not right, we must make the streets.
I want you to hear what he said. This is the same person who said he wasn't in favor of busing. I don't care why. I don't care why. Now, this is not just because of accrued disadvantage and dysfunction that comes with that. Because you have to understand, this accrued disadvantage is like an albatross around our neck. While everybody else has a balloon that lifts them up, we have the albatross that draws us down. This is not just about that, though. This is not just about that. You have to understand what he's saying. You have to understand. We didn't ADOS, we didn't create crack cocaine. How'd that get in our communities? Go watch Antonio's Freeway with Crack in the System. Where does crack cocaine come from? And who watched or dumped it in our communities? Where'd that come from? But you don't care why. So this is like this insidious game where you create this dysfunction. We're a bottom class, we don't have no money. I'm going to throw something in your community that's going to make you be able to make money out of, and you will be able to make money as long as you're willing to make addicts out of people in your community. You make money, you make addicts out of people in your community. And then after you make some money, you think you good. You made them an addict and you dealt with that in your own psychology. We're going to make you make them an addict. And then we're going to swoop you up off the street and we're going to put you in jail. We're not going to put the white people in jail the same way for powder cocaine. We're going to put you in this way for crack cocaine. And I don't care why. We just got to get you off the street. You're the problem, not the crack, not the situation you've been put in, not the slavery, not the lack of opportunities, not the federal laws that didn't protect us, not the federal laws that cut us out of this class-based stuff, right? None of that's the problem. You're the problem. We just got to lock you up, and we're gonna have to worry about why. Understand something. You know, I said this on Twitter today, but I've been really thinking about it. Part of the reason that I am not in favor of class-based solutions, not only don't they work in terms of a race-specific problem, but we've had so many class-based solutions that just don't work. Not for us. We got carved out of the New Deal. We don't, you know, with the GI and the fair labor standards and all of that stuff. That's something that we'll talk about next week. Why should I trust any kind of class-based program when they always carve us out? See, always having carves us, when you've always carved us out, what that means now is that no, I don't do that no more. I do reparations now. I do a black agenda. I don't do this everybody stuff. And nobody's had to do that anyway. But I don't do this. Even if I was ever going to do it, I'm not going to do it now because I have seen how your class-based programs carve us out. I don't agree with Elizabeth Warren's that's why I don't agree with Elizabeth Warren, 50,000 for Cat College or whatever. But the one thing that she said a long time ago made a lot of sense. She said politics is personnel. And what happens is if the people who are implementing the policy don't want you to access it, then you don't access it. And those are the same people today as were the people 50 years ago and 100 years ago and 200 years ago. I know you don't want me to access it. So my only solution for myself, my only solution is to have a policy that's specifically for me and my group. Because I know how you play the game. And I know you're going to be in the room. So I can't play it like you play it. And we have to talk about causation too. You know, a lot of people that, well, it didn't cause it. It's not about cause. Because Biden was responsible and worked with Reagan in the 80s to bring about some other stuff. So yeah, the 94 wasn't the cause. There are a lot of causes. And there's a lot of state prisons that were incentivized. But even if you're incentivized to lock up black people, especially black men, that is not a cause. Right? That's not a cause. So I'm not cause and correlation and how you exacerbate something, how you encourage it. Those are all different things. I'm not saying it's the main cause, but what I'm telling you is that this doesn't come out of anywhere. I want you to look at where the spikes come. Look at where it starts coming in those 90s in prison and jail. Right? Now, understand that this is all coming. You got to go back. Now, look at the bottom of the 60, 70, 80. Now, understand in the 80s, that's also what Reagan is doing, this trickle-down garbage, where he's saying that he cut $20 billion in social welfare funds in his first few years. Now, you have that, and then after that, you have this. You have this crime bill. So you have all the funds and the stuff cut, and then you throw crack in there, and you throw laws that lock people up because of it, and you look at this spike. Let me tell you, this is intentional. Please know that. If you don't believe anything else I say or anything else I talk about on this show or any other show, I want you to understand that this was an intentionally done program. I have talked till I am blue in the face. I have talked all the time about how ADOS are re-enslaved every generation. So what you're seeing now is like what you saw then is like that re-enslavement. And that's how it happened. So we destabilize. We destabilize a community. That's what they do. We destabilize a community with these policies. And we take advantage. You're already in a bad place. It doesn't take much to destabilize people who are already in a really bad space, who are already a bottom cast, and throw something else in there and turn it upside down. And then we make drug dealing popular through hip hop. And it's not because they're trying to make money too. They don't have anything. They're from the ghetto. So we make like selling dope like this popular thing, and we export it. But when we export it, we make other people in other countries believe through that music that this is who black people in America are. This is who ADOS are. That's why they can't get nowhere. They be drug dealing. And that's how we're presented. Nobody tells the story of why somebody had to deal drugs or whether they dealt drugs because their family was hungry or they had no other. They don't tell that story. That's not the story they promote. That's the story they promote is I got to get this money. And that's the story. No. I'm going to get this paper. And if I got to blow your head, blah, 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 blah. That gets exported and popularized. And so we are viewed as having a pathology. There's something wrong with us. What's wrong with these Negroes? They be rapping about drugs and selling cocaine, and they in this country, they could do anything. Yeah, we can't. We couldn't. And the fact that you don't know that or understand that is a problem. It's a real problem. And you didn't just be with, you have to understand something. You didn't just get with Strom and do your thing. I mean, you spoke at the man's funeral. And you talked about death conceals everything but growth. This is Joe Biden at Strom Thurmond's funeral, and strips a man of everything but genius and virtue. It's a sort of natural canonization. What are you talking about? What are you saying? What does it even mean? Thurmond, who lived to 100, was a product of his time. Biden said in his eulogy of the South Carolina Republican who built his career on the Dixiecrat campaign for president in 1948 and on his opposition to civil rights. But Thurmond, Biden asserted, had moved to the good side. No, he hadn't. He never apologized for that stuff. How? And it doesn't even matter if you apologize. Some stuff just has to be career ending. Some stuff just has to be over. It doesn't matter to me whether Strom Thurmond ever apologized. He's finished. I'm not going to accept your apology. You've done too much. You've hurt too many of my people for me to ever accept your apology. I can't do it. Like you fought for us to be a bottom caste. You fought for us to be second class citizens. How are you now going to move back into this space of, well, I said sorry. I don't care. I don't care. None of that matters to me. You shouldn't be here. And understand, we're talking about South Carolina. So hold on, South Carolina. Let me talk about what's wrong with y'all. Black people in South Carolina, what's going on in your mind that this man who coupled up with Strom Thurmond of South Carolina, you want to vote for him? Do you remember Strom? Do you remember this racist segregationist? Do you remember him? Do you remember what he stood for? Do you remember what he wrought? Do you remember that these Dixiecrats were the reason, when you read when affirmative action was right, they were the reason that we couldn't be full citizens back then, that we didn't get what FDR gave us? I mean, what should have gave us? The reason we couldn't get cut into those programs is because of these Dixiecrats like Strom Thurmond. We couldn't get cut into those programs because they were like, nah, we gotta maintain the Southern way of life. We ain't giving these Negroes nothing. We're building our wealth on their back, and you gonna do what? And because of how politics was set up at that time with the numbers and who held what, and the Dixiecrats were high ranking, because of that, FDR was like, well, I guess I won't do nothing. I'm still not approving. I'd have set the world on fire before I did that. But the point for me is, you have to understand what Strom Thurmond stole from us. Like, what he was part of a brigade that was stealing from us. ADOS, that's what he was. He was robbing us of our birthright and our citizenship in this country. For any politician to couple up with him should be a problem and a stain on that politician's record forever. How is the politician that coupled up with Strom Thurmond getting the black vote in South Carolina? South Carolina, please make it make sense. Because I don't get it. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me. And when you look at Biden, what you also see, it says liberal, and he was even capitulating a long time ago. That's part of the reason too he was so good with Obama. He's great at capitulating to, and I think that's probably who you are, and that's probably why you're so good at it. But to Reagan and everybody else, says liberal and civil rights groups grew impatient with Biden during the first 5 years of Reagan's tenure for refusing to take on the president's conservative judicial nominees. And I don't even agree, although a long-time supporter of civil rights. This is an old article. But wait, based on what? Biden did not emerge as a leading advocate until recent years. Listen, that's because he ain't care. He didn't emerge as he didn't push. If he didn't push back on Reagan's judicial nominees, what do you think he's going to do as president? And I'm telling you right now, Democrats, whether you realize it or not, I know you're trying to get the white vote or whatever. We're still in a change election because Obama didn't give us what we wanted in terms of liberals or leftists or Bernie voters or whatever. And Trump still hasn't given Republicans what they want in terms of a wall or whatever. So we're still in a change election. You can give us this status quo man if you want to. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And it shouldn't. Because he says, I want you to remember what he said at the beginning. Let's just bring this back. It did not generate mass incarceration. So what you see when you look at this is you see him, even in 2016, he's defending this. Understand, even in the context, Bill Clinton wasn't still defending this. When he knew Hillary was running, he wasn't even, he tried to come out and make peace or do something because understand what it says for Biden still to be standing on this block. Clinton, I signed a bill that made the problem worse and I want to admit it. Former President Bill Clinton on Thursday disavowed tough crime law that he signed in 1994, saying it made the problem of mass incarceration worse. See, it doesn't have to cause something to make it worse. I signed a bill that made the problem worse, and I want to admit it, Clinton said at the NAACP's convention in Philadelphia. Biden doesn't even understand that much. In that bill, there were long sentences, and most of these people are in prison under state law. But the federal law set a trend. The federal law set a trend. It set a trend. It just did what it did. That's just the truth. Set a trend. That's what I mean. So what he's going to try to do? What he's going to try to do is say, well, I didn't make it happen. And so people are going to come out and say, well, it didn't cause it. That's true. But that's not the issue. We're not talking about causation. All of this stuff is built. Everything is built on something else. All of this stuff is built on everything that goes back to slavery. If you want to know the truth, it's all built together. So we're not saying that. What are you talking about? It's crazy people. Well, I mean, the CBC, they was they told me about it too. They was right there with me. How come they ain't say nothing? They could have said something. Why not? Why they not? Why y'all don't hold them accountable? We do, but not in the same show. Not in the same show. Nobody's saying that they don't get held accountable. I don't think we understand what these charts mean. Like, I don't think we really get it. Look at the Great Depression's last crossing, and this is the coming reality. So this is like another Great Depression. The people say, well, we can just banjo, we can take one for the team. Based on what? Green line shows share of U.S. wealth held by 0.1%. Red line of wealth held by the bottom 90%. Understand. Understand when crack is put into your community, you have to understand what that means. And you have to understand the consequence of it. You got to understand that. So here we go. So fam, as we get out of the Clinton stuff, I want everybody to understand something else. There's been a lot of talk about, there's a lot of stuff that we haven't talked about, and there's a lot of stuff that we're not going to talk about. Everybody's just going to talk about the Crime Act as if it's just one thing. But one of the things that you have to understand is that these bills are full of a lot, and they reverberate. They reverberate throughout time and throughout history. And they're hundreds of pages long for a reason. The devil is always in the details. And so one of the things that you find, how the war on drugs kept black men out of college, is that, so what did we talk about? So you got the crack. People sell the crack, create addicts, create destabilization in the community. And this is especially addiction exists a lot when there's a void and when there's abuse. Bottom caste is prime for that. So you do that, you create addicts, and then you take the people who sell the drugs, you make harsh penalties for the people who sell those drugs, you put them in cages. Now when you talk about, well, what happens when they get out of prison? What happens is you have recidivism, because the stuff that's been put in place to try to make sure that they can figure out some kind of trade or figure out something that they can do, that's over with. That's also part of this whole crime thing. So they make it to where the person, usually black men who went to prison, when they come out of prison, they're no good to the community. They've learned all the worst things, and they haven't been given skills to be a part of that community. They used to be. So let's look at it. There was a time when black men's college enrollment was gaining ground as compared to white men's. From 1980 to 1985, college enrollment among black men ages 18 to 24 grew slightly faster than it did for their white peers. In 1994, the Clinton administration passed the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act, which made prisoners and formerly incarcerated individuals ineligible for Pell Grants, educational grants that help low-income people pay for post-secondary education. In addition, the 1998 Aid Elimination Amendment to the Higher Education Act denied any federal aid to students with drug-related convictions, further limiting financial aid to drug felons. See, what we don't understand about this dodge, what we really don't understand is that this is a trap. Like, what they're doing is creating a space or whatever where you don't have no way out. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to be. And whether there was also, people don't want to talk about it, the Prison Litigation Act. There was also, when you talk about truth and sentencing, that dealt with parole. When you're not getting parole, Prison Litigation Act made it where prisoners couldn't get appeals. Had made it hard to get appeals. So what are we supposed to do? And let me just read you a little piece of data while I got this up here. In 1994, 71% of prisons had associate's programs. So you could get an associate's degree. 71% of prisons in 1994 had that. That was down to 37% by 1998. Now, bachelor's programs dropped from 48% in 1994 to 20% in 1998 in prisons. So you had the drop in associate's program because and bachelor's programs, because what was paying for them was these Pell Grants. And you have to also understand, that, and what I mean it's a trap. When you look at a maze, you ever looked at a maze and there's only one way out. But in this situation, you look at it and there's like no way out. Like, all the little stuff is if you had a way out of trying to get a degree, we're going to close that off. You had a way out of trying to do something else, we're going to close that off. Like, you had all that, we closing off. You're just going to be in this cell forever. We can't have you on these streets. And if you go outside these streets because you can't really get a job and you can't get a skill, you'll be back here soon. You don't know how to do nothing else. You'll be back. Re-enslavement. Compounded disadvantage. That's what you're looking at. And before you think this wasn't just this bill wasn't the Democrats tried to claim this bill. Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell lauded it as a victory for the party, saying this is a Democratic bill. It's talking about the crime bill. The author of the bill is a Democrat. The principal support for this bill is a Democratic president. They were throwing us under the bus. They didn't care. And I want to end on something that's very important. I want to end on something that's very, very, very important. We don't talk a lot about not only the consequence of prison in terms of drugs and the flood of drugs in our community that we don't make. We didn't figure that out. And if we had opportunity, nobody with opportunity decides, yeah, I could be a physicist, or I could be a doctor, or I could have stable work at this factory, but I'm gonna just sell crack. Like, wealthy people don't do that. We have to really look at the consequence. Now I'm gonna bring this up a little bit bigger so everybody can see it. But the tweet says how the crack cocaine epidemic caused a surge in violence, particularly amongst black men in the 1980s and 90s. And I want you to look at this in the context. Now look at the left side. Look at that number. You see how white female, black female, you see how greater the number is for black men as opposed to every other group. And you see how like white women are down at let me just move this up so you can see. Like look at that left. Look at the left number, right? And look at the dates on the bottom. Now look at the spike. Look at this spike. When you look at the top one, which is black males, I'm gonna bring that down. Look at this spike right here that starts in like the 80s, right? And you see like you see like what this causes in our community. You see like what has been done. And it wasn't, we're not going to get into this today, but it wasn't a surge of violence in terms of just homicide. It was a surge in violence. It was a surge in violence and murder rates on this chart. There's also, and I don't think I brought this one, but there's also one that shows suicides. There's also one that shows that. So what I'm telling you is this. If you look down, you see all the way from 1968, I believe, to 2013. If you look up in the left-hand corner, you see these murder rates. You see 20, 40, 60, 81, 61, 80. Look how high that goes, though, for black men. That's the first chart. Black males is the first chart. The second chart is white males. I want you to look at these murder rates to the side. 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and I want you to go all the way down and look at how drastically higher. Look at the white female and look at the black female and look how drastically higher this black male rate is. And look at what it coincides with. Look at the biggest spike. That's solid, and that solid black line. That solid black line is 15 to 24. That's your fifth. We're talking about the dotted line is 25 to 34, right? So you have to understand what America did. You have to understand what America did. When you look at this white woman, her thing is like starts at 0. The white female down at the bottom. It starts at 0 and goes, what's the top of that? Like 8? 5? Stops at 5. Look at the black male. It starts at 0, goes to 200. I don't think we understand. Even when you look at people like, well, it's all men. Men go to jail more. No, look at the white male. 0 stops at 20. The black male 0 up to 200 in terms of this side murder rate. I don't think we understand what has happened to us, what has been done to us as a community, as a group. And like I said, we're talking here about murder, but you have to understand, I have a suicide chart too. It's horrible because you put guns in the hands of people who were already suffering. That's what you did. And look at this gap right here. Like when you see, like look at this black male chart right here, the first chart. Now look at the age. See this little light gray line, 35 plus. These are I don't think we really soak this chart in. I'm gonna leave this chart up for just a second. Just soak this chart in to understand who we are. That's what happens. You don't got no job. You ain't got nothing to do. You got crack. You got crack in your community. That's what it is. And there's no way to understand. That's the only way to really understand is to look at that and really understand that this was an intentional act. This flooding of our communities with crack and what happened, these were intentional acts to destabilize, and we're going to put this in there and we're going to put them in these cages and we're going to compound their disadvantage. When I talk about accrued disadvantage, we're going to compound the disadvantage that they already experienced in their communities. That's what we are. And there's a very specific cause, and that's why we have a very specific justice claim. And there's no reason. So that's why I don't say, well, Yvette, do you dislike Caribbean people, African people? No. But the question becomes, like, no, like, this is a crude disadvantage. We had a disadvantage that goes all the way back from slavery and Jim Crow and all of that. And it accrues all the way through. That's a specific justice claim. That's a specific accrued disadvantage. That's specific. I don't know, I don't think we fathom this. And people will say, well, no, the older people just didn't rob and steal. No, the older people on this chart, they had jobs. When you have jobs, you typically don't rob or steal or sell crack because it's a dangerous profession. The black line, they had it. This is what happens when you remove the opportunity for upward mobility. When you make people substandard or not citizens in our own country, what happens is this kind of dysfunction. You feel like you have to sell an illegal drug that would put you years in prison, and you got to see people that you know on it and sell it to them because you trying to do whatever you got to eat. Ain't nobody. This is what happens. This doesn't happen in real communities. This doesn't happen in stable communities. This doesn't happen in communities with wealth. That's why it was so prevalent in our community. It wasn't because of some specific kind of dysfunction that we had. That's not what it was. So as we go to break, I want you to sit down and think about that. I want you to think about, if you call in, think about the role that Biden played in that, and how it's unfathomable for me, honestly, that he's even amongst ADOS a consideration in this election, and amongst people who try to present themselves as well-meaning people. There's no way to be a well-meaning person and vote for Biden. As somebody who says you have the best intentions for black people. No, you don't. Not if you're voting for this man. You don't. So I'm going to take it to the phones, fam. When I come back, as usual, we'll have a conversation. All right, fam, we are back and going to, going to the calls. Please, let's try to make our calls concise as we can. Like, we have a story to tell. I want to hear it. You know, always, always. But I'm just saying, like, if you can, if possible, because I'm trying to get a few people in. Let's try to be respectful. But I understand sometimes we got some stuff to say, and we gotta. It's a story. We gotta tell it. But I'm just be respectful to other Breaking Brown callers. I would absolutely appreciate it. So we're about to go to our first call, fam. Our first call comes from 323. What's your 323? What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
My name is Stanley.
Hey, Stanley.
Calling from Los Angeles.
What's going on?
Yeah, I got actually caught up in that whole situation of pretty much the crack in Los Angeles.
Okay.
I think because I got out of it, but I saw a community that pretty much just got the soul ripped out of it. I remember it had a connection to the rest of the country. I remember they used to have the classic during Thanksgiving, and then after that event, it pretty much, I think that affected. It was so much death to the point to where it affected the population of California, of Los Angeles.
What you mean? They just saw too much? They saw too much suffering and death?
It was, for instance, it destroyed families, it destroyed relationships, it tore people apart. It pretty much, it was as if somebody dropped a bomb in the community. But I wanted to say something, to switch wheels real quick. I work at a facility and I work with people, and actually I have facilitate a group. I had a group going and I looked up and saw there was all 8 of those people. I know my clients. So I started going into a bit of lineage therapy, and we went back into, do you know who? We went 2 or 3 generations back and we started running into slavery. And most of those people, if we go forward, let me put it to you like this here, the effects of slavery. I asked one young lady about her mother, and she said, my mother was a hoe. I'm using her words, and my father was a pimp. Now, to make this make sense, in the group, one other girl said, and to show you the dysfunction that secured over time, when other girl said, was your mama the bottom bitch? And everybody in there understood what she was talking about.
Yeah.
And to a point to where when we was discussing it, they finally understood that this behavior started before them, and it was because they had never thought about the era and the time that their parents
came up in.
Exactly. Or their parents' parents. Because when I asked them to go a step back, they talked about the period. I say, now, what was America like then? And most of them came back to slavery. And it started making sense of why I am like I am, why I'm this way, why I'm so color struck, why I'm,
it explains who you are.
This way.
And let me just say this, fam. I think that's one of the reasons too. I kind of push against people. It's not the biggest reason, but it is the reason when people say, "Well, slavery was a long time ago." Slavery is not only in your life in terms of the cost economically, although that is what makes you American in terms of whether you can afford to live an American life in terms of affordability, but it's in the dysfunction. Like, this dysfunction there's no pathology in kinky hair or no pathology in melanin. This dysfunction is what it is from oppression. That's what it comes from. Oppression and being locked out of wealth. That's the dysfunction.
Slavery is recent, especially coming out of Alabama. I was raised in Alabama. They will always remind me about slavery. As far as I'm concerned, the general population would access that to remind me of my place. So it has always been recent. All right, thank you.
No problem. I appreciate it, fam. Yeah, I think all right. That's one of the things, like, regardless of what. See, the thing is, we have to start holding our own line, right? So what that means is, regardless of what anybody else says, we have to think independently. We have to think independently of these other people, right? So you can't say, well, slavery was a long time ago, because you heard a lot of white Americans say that. And so you kind of agree with it. No, you have to say the truth. Like, in this moment, it is essential that you tell the truth about your life. If somebody white comes up to you and they start talking about wealth, my mama, and I'm happy to have it. How about you? I don't have that. I got slavery in my background. I don't have wealth. How about you? Like, I mean, you can't lie to yourself, and you got to stop lying to other people as well. That is not how we get there. I know you don't want to feel ashamed, but you don't have to feel ashamed because you didn't do nothing. This is not, what happened to you is not anything that you did to yourself or anything that you should have like ownership over. So I don't even understand the argument of, well, I don't want to feel XYZ way. I don't even understand that. It doesn't make any sense to me. No, you didn't enslave yourself, did you? So I'm going to the next call. 310, what's going on?
What up, y'all? This is Tone Talks. Shout out. This is a powerful show. Shout out to the last man that just called in. I think what he was describing is something actually real powerful. He's describing the fact that we ain't living right. What I mean by that is nobody lives in just this lifetime. See, what Adolf has done is triggered a way of living that is quite normal, where you live knowing your parents and your grandparents and start seeking that out, so you have some rooting. The part of the reason that everything is off outside of wealth, of course, is that we live in as though this is the only moment that ever happened. In large part, that's what you saw in that room. I had never thought about what my grandmama did. Well, if you look at our contemporaries, whether they white women, Asian men, everybody thinks about what their grandparents was doing because they need to, because they're going to inherit that money. And I'm saying this just to say, I think what we're seeing right now is an awakening and a discussion going on about what it is to be a human, let alone an American, that has triggered a question about black people about who am I if I ain't been doing none of this? What have I been doing? Following Game of Thrones in the NBA? That's my life. So let's talk. I want to do a quick little lesson because Yvette showed some charts, and I want to make sure that we get some. Yvette, can you start off with the crack chart? Because I just want to make sure that
the black and white.
To the other in a second.
Okay.
Black, white, and gray one. I want to make sure that we saw something because Yvette be putting these charts up, and they so powerful. We got to slow down sometimes. The chart is interesting for me to see, not only as an attorney, not only from the documentary Freeway Cracking the System and the narrative that gives, but also knowing the incarceration numbers the way I do. The interesting part about the chart, first of all, is the vertical line, the up and down line. How small it is for white women versus how large it is for black men. Because these numbers, these lines all look the same when you look at them. Basically, white women don't get murdered at all. That's what the number is, 5. That's the range of their chart. Where is 5 at on the black male chart? That is about a quarter way up from the lowest rung. 5. And I say all that to say something even more important. What you also see on this chart is the difference between black boomers and Gen X. Let me explain. We're going to see it through black males. So when you look at this chart, I want you to look at a pivotal year on the black male chart, and that is 1983. Look at the divergence between the 35 years old and the 25 to 34 year olds in 83. Let me say something to you. I'm sorry. The 35 plus year olds and the 15 to 24 year olds in 83. So the people that are transitioning into adulthood versus the people that are rooted in adulthood in 1983. Up until that point, they're all the same. But in 1983, we see this change. Now, before we talk about why that change happened, let's do a little math. Yvette, you with me?
Mm-hmm.
What is when we look at 35 and we take out just about 18 years, where does that put us? Right around the late 60s?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 68 or so?
Around there.
What happened in 1968? Civil rights.
Whew.
See, what you actually see on this chart is that there's a bunch of jobs house and access and privilege that the group of us 35 got when they were at the transitionary point of their lives that the group 15 to 24 wasn't getting. That's what this chart is showing. So the difference that happens is you go and you murder people versus you feel stable and you have a house and everything else and you don't. There's no that gap is insane. And I think for a lot of us, let's pull out Yvette and go to the blue red jail chart up right next to the depression chart. A lot of us don't really want to be honest about what happened. I feel like Biden is an indictment of Obama, and an indictment of black boomers, because many of us were coming into our first early age voting, and black boomers should have seen when Biden was picked and said Obama's not our guy. I don't care what Kenyan and white mix he is. This guy should have been connected to Strom Thurmond the same way Yvette is doing right now, and he just wasn't done. And I don't know how you're supposed to be political, what you were doing at that time. I don't know. And I know for the blacks I've talked to that are boomers, they told me they just wanted to see somebody like us because they had never seen somebody like us run for president. I don't know what kind of politics that is. Obama picked Biden, who said all those videos. Now somebody can say, well, they didn't have the internet to be able to tell them about this video. Well, then what were you voting on? Just because he looks like you? This is an awful indictment of Obama, of black boomers, of black politics, up until Adolf. And so I come to this, and I want to just as I leave out, let's look at the correlation between these two charts here. Again, this chart that Yvette put up shows a spike in prison, mostly black males, some brown. Right around, and if you can scoot it down so they can see the year at the bottom. If you look, it's right about 1983. But when you look at it and you line it up with the chart that we've been using about the wealth level of the bottom 90 and the top 0.1, it correlates with the downshift of the amount of wealth that the bottom 90 had. So they caused prison by taking all the wealth. Let me say that again. They caused prison by taking all the wealth. We like to think about all these policies independent, but they're interwoven. Mass incarceration, crack cocaine policy, but let's not forget trickle down. In the first few years, I said this in the last show, of Reagan's presidency, he cut $20 billion in social programs. That's just that. That's not even dealing with some of the other things trickle down did. What Reagan did rolls back all of the advantages that led to us going up on this red line, and then in a sense creates this perfect environment for exactly what we see in the second chart for all these men to murder themselves, murder others, sell drugs, and go to prison, and got them right off the streets. Understand that now we're at a moment where the lines are crossing again, and we don't have enough wealth. I don't know what you think your children are going to do going forward. I'm just telling you that I would be leery right now, because if I had a young one, I don't know what to tell them. And I'm saying also to you, we live in a moment where Yvette just pointed out that the Pell Grants aren't giving the prisoners where they put all the black men, but they want to give the Pell Grants to illegals through DACA. And that was done by your first African-American president. None of it makes sense. And I'm just saying, in the end, they also talking about taking the Pell Grants away altogether. And I'll tell you right now, from UCLA to Dr. Cosby's Little School, Simmons College, that basically relies on Pell Grants. If they take the Pell Grants away, your kid's not going to be able to be in school. 90% of y'all. That was on Kamala's site that Betsy DeVos and Trump, they trying to pull the Pell Grants. That's because they don't have no money because of the taxation. But you know who do have money? Top 20% of white folks, because they got their money from the taxes back. They can pay the cash. And we are at a point where y'all better understand this is awful that Biden has been reincarnated. He came out creepy Biden, then he came out with the racist videos, and they not on TV no more. Somehow, the most racist videos, Yvette asked me to look for some stuff on Strom Thurmond, he don't even have videos on the Senate floor saying what Biden said. Biden got all these videos, and they not on TV no more. There's an establishment that's making a decision that they're going to try to make this man a candidate today, no matter how many fails he had. And you got to understand, he is the person that you least want in the office. He's Trump-esque. They very similar. That's all I wanted to say.
Appreciate it as always, Tone. Appreciate it as always. And let me just say something. It was crazy. It was crazy to me. I asked Antonio. I said, "Can you download the Do you still have the clip? Like I need the clip, and I'm doing something. Can you get the clip for the what was it? The Strom Thurmond? Oh, the N word." And it was crazy to me that like the N word was there. Because I found online what Strom Thurmond said, but I wanted the audio of that. I didn't just want to read it to you. I wanted to hear him say it. But it was wild to me that like we don't have you got that for Strom way back in 1950s, but you don't have this for, you don't have a lot of stuff for all this stuff for Biden. You don't have like, where is even when you look at the newspaper, because I went through last couple of days, I've gone through archives, like a bunch of archives, and I found like the New York Times has done a great job of archiving their articles, but like for a lot of other people, and I know this part is because there's not money in journalism, and that's a problem too, because I need to archive articles from that period too. I don't need just the New York Times, which is the premier publication. I need it from all of y'all who was writing about this, and you can't find a lot of it. That's another problem. Like this stuff is intentionally hidden. People intentionally not archiving stuff. It's crazy. But anyway, let me go to the next caller. I'm going now to 201. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, what's up, Yvette? This is Kyrie from North. How you doing?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm just doing my regular thing. So, talking about this whole crack thing or whatever, I just want to call in and, give my conjecture. You asked earlier in the show where all of the cracks, in our neighborhoods came from. And I think it's the same people who wrote this 94 crime bill who put it in there. It's a documentary on YouTube called Obstruction of Justice, The Meaning Connection. It talks about how Bill Clinton used the Arkansas government to not only traffic in drugs, but to launder the drug money in something called the Arkansas Development Finance Authority. And I'm pretty sure when he became president, he didn't stop what he was doing, and all of them was involved.
Well, anything's possible, fam. I don't like to engage too much in conjecture. I like to engage in what I can prove. But anything's possible. I mean, anything's possible, fam. I mean, I'm gonna try to get to some more people, but I'm not saying that I don't like. The thing is, like this stuff is so. Thank you, fam. It's so insidious. We don't know. Like when you look at Iran Contra, like he could be right. Like we don't know. There's no way to know how deep this goes because of everything that's been hidden. Even what we know in terms of like Antonio's documentary, other stuff we learned, I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. So I can't say whether this brother's wrong or right. Ain't nobody showed me no real stuff. That was a great article from the AP. I think if I can find it, they haven't taken it down. I think I screenshot it a few years ago. I'll put it back up. That just makes you go, this is the AP that wrote this. This is the Associated Press that wrote this. This is insane. But I'll put it back up just in terms of how everything weaves together. So I'm going now to 614. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hi, my name is Valerie.
Hey, Valerie.
And it's an honor to speak with you. I've listened to you night and day. I'm very, very proud of you.
Thank you.
I'm very, very proud of Tone. You're young people. Yeah, I'm a baby boomer. Some of the things that you say are somewhat true, but some of those things are not.
Okay.
We did not have the media that they have now to know. I'm learning and finding out certain things that had happened that could have been speculated then that are definitely proven as facts now. I was a young mother in the early 80s with my children going to school, divorced mother, single parent home. There weren't that kind of problems as they're saying with this crime, making up that crime bill. But I was very concerned at you quickly. My children were giving out cards from their school that if you yell at your children, discipline your children with any way, you were to notify the school. And parents were going to jail. They're throwing black parents in jail for disciplining the children. I do feel part of this was the beginning of this Incarceration Act by loosening up our control of our own children in our home.
You say, but what about loosening up kids in your own home? What'd you say?
I'm saying discipline your children.
But
Black
see,
mothers and fathers discipline their children.
yeah, but see,
There were
that's,
laws passed
but
where you would go to jail for disciplining your children.
see, let me
They
just
would
say,
give our children cards.
let me just say this.
to
Let
inform
me
the
just,
teachers.
you know, what I want to say is, like, there's no amount of discipline that you could do that was going to make up for the politics that you didn't do. So I understand, like, not having the data and not seeing it clearly, but really and truthfully, like, the game, like, politics is the game. That's the field of play in terms of societies, not in terms of your family, your particular, but in terms of, that's the game of play. So yes, in terms of, I'm not talking about beating a child, but yes, you can take care of a child in your home. But if you have not done the work to make sure after they do everything right and they get outside of your home and they have access something to plug that into, you know, that you don't do anything. And then you all really did have media. Y'all had Ebony at that time. Ebony then wasn't Ebony now. So you had Ebony, which was pushing that narrative and pushing and talking about politics. So you had, and you before that you had King. So you had a pathway. But what I saw happen, I'm not speaking of you individually. I have no way of knowing what you did or didn't do. But I'm speaking in terms of, there was a pathway to understand that, like, freedom and liberation comes through this political game. And what I saw was a lot of people decide they didn't want to play that game because they had a good job or they had a life and they didn't want to do that. And they wanted to focus on their family and not focus on politics. You can focus on your family and raising good kids, but you can't do that and cut politics out of your life. That has to be a part of what you do. It's essential.
Well, I agree with you on that. You know, I was part of Neighborhood Watch, but as far as connecting with different organizations, we try to, now I have to speak for myself again, I thought I was doing something. Thought I was joining city council to make a difference. But it wasn't as far as joining a larger group of people of color, black people, which I wish I could, and I see this, and as I look back, I wish we were doing that then. But if that wasn't, what was focused on us was to leave, go integrate, and all of that. That's what was said to that group of people in their lives.
And let me just say this. Let me just say this, fam. What I see at that time, and I'm not saying that you're wrong, I see a vacuum of leadership. See, the thing that leadership should have done, political leadership during your era, there was magazines, so I do think there was something to guide you in the right direction. But that's not saying that there was not an abdication. Like, what happened, there's a great article about after King died. And one of the things that happened after King got assassinated and took a bullet, and after Malcolm X took a bullet, and after some, it wasn't just them taking bullets, there were car bombs. Fred Hampton got shot in his bed. After that happened, what happened is a lot of these leaders, Andrew Young, everybody, meaning they ran for the money and left the people behind. And so what you have also is you have an abdication of leadership as well. And I blame them as well. I don't just blame boomers, although I do, because I think at some point, like, there has to be some kind of thought in picking up the mantle. But I do agree there was also a abdication of leadership because people got scared, and I don't even know. So, but they got scared and they took off running. They said, I'm gonna make some money and do the integrationist thing, and everybody followed suit. And that was a pathway to hell and damnation. That's all I can say. It's a pathway to being a bottom caste. I'm gonna let you finish up though, fam. I'm sorry.
Well, I agree with you on that. But when Martin Luther King died, I was 14.
Uh-huh.
So I'm part of that baby boomer, part of that. But the leaders we had then were pushing integration on everyone. And if you didn't want to do that, there seemed to be something wrong with it. I'm just saying, as far as being in a church and joining together, strengthening ourselves for what we should have done, what you're doing now should have been done then. But it wasn't. because our leaders had their own priorities. Busing was pushed on us. No one really wanted busing. That's what destroyed our communities. That's a big part of destroying our nest and our community. And a lot of us were not for that. But it's easier to say what we could have, should have done with any organization, because there was really no organization like that. The NAACP were doing their own thing for their own benefit. It actually should be denounced. The Black Caucus, they really didn't do anything. There's no way to really contact them with Julian Bond. They really, the only thing we could really do was go to our church and try to be good citizens. Is what we try to do. We don't have what we have now with YouTube, connecting, following. I'll meet you somewhere in Kentucky. See that structure. We did not have it. We just got black music in the 70s. Where I was from, black music on the radio. So, I'm part of that baby boomer, but I'm not. The baby boomer is a large part. Not making an excuse, but they really need to kind of understand. And I do understand that half of Martin Luther King's speech was written by the NAACP regarding integration, which was wrong. Because he was totally against that. He was forced to read that.
Okay.
He was forced to read that by the NAACP.
Okay. Well,
but now that these things, the best I can do is give money, help support, be a part of, and encouraging, and talk to my relatives. But that's a missed part of my life. But I wish the communication that you have now was at the time it was blowing up.
I understand, fam. I understand, and I'm gonna take it offline. But I understand, and this is it's something that we do have to talk about. And I want to thank you for calling in with criticisms of actually what happened during your era. I think that is part of it. Let me just say this first about busing and all that stuff. When they integrated us, like, even integration was done wrong, right? Like, how do you integrate and you send us to a white school without our black teachers? Because black teachers are so important. Like, if you're going to integrate, they decided that they're just going to come to somewhere where this white teacher's going to be indifferent to whether you succeed or fail. And so, really and truthfully, when you talk about immigration, the problem was separate but equal. And so, they could have given us the resources to maintain our own schools, but they decided not to do that. And that has been problematic. And you realize that, like, the way it happened, you got sent to a white school, like, and the teacher didn't care. And your black teachers were we had a severe loss of a lot of black teachers lost their jobs because they weren't accepted to be teachers at the white schools. So I understand that that's a big deal. But I also see what happened with a lot of older people too, is that not only was there no leadership, like, there was apathy. There was a cover on Ebony magazine, who's in the new middle class, and there was this belief, and maybe it's because of lack of data, that you had arrived, and there was no lack of leadership too, like the caller said, and there was no push to protect the gains and then secure gains for the next generation. Instead, like, you all kind of watched Oprah and relaxed, like you thought the game had been won, and the game had not been won, and so. The caller speaks something that's very interesting in terms of leadership, but, like, you always, regardless of what leadership is there, I understand she went to PTA, but you always have to stay in line with politics in some way or fashion. You have to do that in your community, and you certainly have to be knowledgeable about who's doing what where and what your community needs. You have to know what your community needs more than the politicians know what your community needs. Like, you have to know more than them, because they don't know a lot anyway. You might think they do, but you get up with them, they don't know a lot. They can't remember all that stuff. It's too much going on. They got to call too many donors. They don't know. But you got to know your stuff. So I think there's a lot to learn from what the caller said. So we should keep that in mind. I'm going to the next call. I am going to 929. Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Okay.
Turn your background down, caller. 929, are you there?
Yes, I am. How are you?
Pretty good. Turn your background down for me if you can.
I'm so sorry. How are you tonight?
I'm good.
How's everything, Sam?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm great. I had to call in on this matter. We were talking about y'all covered so many different things tonight. Oh my goodness. The crack epidemic, I think that was a very, very pivotal point for black people in general. I'm sure every black person in America can relate that they have a family member or someone that they've indirectly or directly suffered from being, in that epidemic during that time.
Yeah.
And I've lost a sister to breast cancer, but she also was dealing with the drug epidemic during that time. It's sad that we are living in a day and time where there are laws still in place to keep us held back. And from what my understanding is, the way I see the laws, they have to be modified. The policies or procedures need to be abolished or changed. Because if they're not, we're going to continue. Like when our next president comes in, they'll turn around, they'll give us something, but then they'll turn around and abolish it or take it away. So it's like defeating the purpose. I don't know what's needed, but I do know that we need laws that are going to protect us indefinitely. That I do know.
Yeah, I think I said it. Yeah, I said we need to be a protected group. Like we have to be like, you protect the spotted owl, don't you? We the spotted owls. Like we the spotted owls. We the human spotted owls of America. Like that's what. Like, and I'm joking because you have to add levity to it, but I think there's no way, because when you don't do that, people just rob us and plunder us and take advantage of us and use us for fodder, like cannon fodder or whatever. Put us in like that's what happens, or evict us because there's no protections. So I think you're right about that.
Yes, it's so sad though what we're going through, and I don't know, how do we find out what is on the agenda of the current presidents? Like, what are their policies or what are their procedures? How does the public know what they are? I mean, that's in black and white. How are we supposed to know what they're representing and what they're bringing to the table? We know who they are by saying, "Oh, I'm this or I'm that. I'm but we don't really know.
Let me say this. Let me say this.
Mm-hmm.
Let me say. Let me just say this. And I'm gonna let you go and take another call. And I appreciate you calling in. But I'm gonna answer your question. I trust numbers a lot more than words. So when I talk to people, I don't want to necessarily just talk about what they're in favor of. I want to talk about whatever my thing is that's in my community, like that I need. I want to talk about how much you are going to increase the budget to pay for this thing. Because the thing that I need is probably going to cost more money. Like when we talk about reparations, that's money. When we talk about the infusion of capital in our community or getting more SBA loans, that's money. So I want to talk about budgets. I want to talk about numbers. I want to talk about dollars and cents. And so even when we talked about HR 40, I want that to be connected to a budget. Right? I want that allotment to already, I want a starting allotment to already be set aside. And then we can talk about how much you're going to add to it every year. Like I said, everything doesn't have to happen at one time. But we have to get into a habit, because when we did I don't know if you all remember the show that I did about Trump, and I did about like how he was going to gut Black America and how it was going to hurt us. And I went through the budget to show you how much he was zeroing out of programs. Because that shows you. I don't care what he said on TV. I don't care what anybody says on TV. Look at this budget. When you look at what we talk about Biden, look at the prison budget and how much that prison budget is decreasing. So if you really want to know the priorities of your community, look at the last fiscal budget and compare it to this fiscal budget. And look at where the differences are, the pluses and minuses. What got added? What budgets got increased? What budgets got decreased? Because that's where you find the truth. Everybody who goes to Capitol Hill is fighting for money. They're all fighting for a part of that budget. And when you learn to read budgets, you begin to understand who really has you as a priority and who doesn't. Words are garbage. Words don't mean anything. People will say anything. They will lie and maneuver. The budget, though, tells you the story. So I'm going to the next call. I am going to 301. 301, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Evening, Sister Yvette. How you doing? This is
Pretty
Marshall
good. How
calling
about
from
you?
DMV. I'm good, sister. How are you?
I'm doing
going to
well.
try to be as quick as possible, but I do have a few things to go over, so
Okay.
just follow me. First and foremost, the Tuesday, Monday and tonight, I can't get my days right. Monday and tonight, speaking on Joe Biden, this has inspired me to go back to an article that speaks on so many topics that you and Tony have been hitting on, and it's from the Atlantic. It was a piece by Ta-Nehisi as possible, but I do have a few things to go over, so
Okay.
just follow me. First and foremost, the Tuesday, Monday and tonight, I can't get my days right. Monday and tonight, speaking on Joe Biden, this has inspired me to go back to an article that speaks on so many topics that you and Tony have been hitting on, and it's from the Atlantic. It was a piece by Ta-Nehisi in, I believe it's October 2015, and the name of the article was "The Black Family in the Age of Mass Incarceration."
Okay.
And basically, it starts, this and a quote by D.L. Hughley. He was on The View last year, and he said, I think the most dangerous place for black people is in the mind of white folks.
Okay.
And when we're talking about these crime bills, and I believe it's October 2015, and the name of the article was "The Black Family in the Age of Mass Incarceration."
Okay.
And basically, it starts, this and a quote by D.L. Hughley. He was on The View last year, and he said, I think the most dangerous place for black people is in the mind of white folks.
Okay.
And when we're talking, take me back to that article, and I wanted to just go into a piece of it real quick. Basically, I'll start off with a quote. Blacks were criminals by nature and brutes by nature, and something more than the law of civilized men was needed to protect the white public. And this was basically by a racist Southern white writer in 1868. And then later in the article, it goes into something that was said in the medical journal about blacks were naturally intemperate. Every appetite to freely, whether for food, drink, tobacco, or sensual pleasures, and sometimes to such an extent as to appear more brute than force. And then when you pick it up to what, Biden was, talking about with this crime bill, he's basically, just to quote it, one of my objectives, quite frankly, is to lock Willie Horton up in jail. And Biden was casting Democrats as the true party without any mercy. Let me define the liberal wing of the Democratic Party, he said in 1994. The liberal wing of the Democratic Party is now for 60 new death penalties. The liberal wing of the Democratic Party has 70 enhanced penalties. The liberal wing of the Democratic Party is for 100,000 cops. The liberal wing of the Democratic Party is for 125,000 new state prison cells. Now, this is 1994, and you take that with the two quotes that I gave you at the beginning of my statement, and it's basically the same thing. And it's horrible that through the imagination of people who see us as brutes, do we continue to get these laws, and why we continue to just be under this caste, to continue to be this lower caste. And unfortunately, our role in this is that, just to have a little safe space and to be comfortable, we play into it. I'm not trying to knock the caller who called in about, black folks being responsible and how we need to be more disciplined, but we've been disciplined. If playing on the imagination thing again, if we truly acted out what was in the imagination of all these people, this country would have burned down a long time ago. We don't want to see it burn. We want to be active participants in it, but through their racist imaginations, like, I got to continue putting through laws and make it, these incentives people, our people, being, white and, make sure that non-blacks are just, and especially us black folks, us ADOS, continuing to suffer so that they don't have to. Bobby Womack said it best, the family on the other side of town will catch hell without a ghetto around. So, and I wanna just end this real quick, and I'm gonna get off the phone. People, if you're listening, look up a name, Johnny St. Valentine Brown. I'll say it again, Johnny St. Valentine Brown. If you don't know this name, the reason why so many black men are incarcerated is because of this D.C. detective who came up with the faux scientific reason why 5 grams of cocaine is equal to 5 grams of crack is equal to 500 grams of cocaine. This was a DC detective who in 2000 was found out to be a fraud because he stated that he had on his resume and was talking up the fact that he had an advanced degree in pharmacy from Howard University. And this is the person basically you can point to who gave these figures to Congress and therefore put through this bill that has been a detriment to the black family ever since, the 80s, and he did this basically as something to curtail a lot of the deaths that were happening in D.C. due to the crack game, but it was in no way scientific. But we are still dealing with this today, and unfortunately, the effects of it will, come for generations. So, sister, I just want to say, keep doing what you're doing always. I love you.
No, I love you too. That was an informative call. I appreciate that. Thank you, fam. That was a great call.
No problem, sister. Good night.
Good night.
Breaking Brown family and Tone Talks family.
Good night, fam. Wow, like that's what we gotta do. That's the benefit. That's the benefit of the world being at our fingertips now in terms of information. You really can know more than people around you, and you really can use that information to kind of weaponize your politics in terms of what you can do. That was a phenomenal call. I never knew that. Did you know that? Like, and those were some specifics in terms of the prisons. I appreciate that. I'm going on to the next call. I'm going to 256. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, Yvette.
What's going on?
This is Terrence from Alabama.
What's going on?
I just want to say thank you so much for what you're doing right now.
No problem.
I was looking for a movement that was focused on America, that wasn't focused on trying to get to Africa and get back to go back to Africa. So I just want to thank you for that. I actually started a political show. Just from listening to you and going and doing my research. I was a former political science major, so I'm using that to talk to the people in Alabama and get them revved up and ready to go.
Okay.
So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit more about the abortion thing, because the chief architect for the abortion law in Alabama is actually my representative, and she's from Decatur, Alabama, and she's a woman also. So I just wanted to let you know that little bit of information about white women sidelining everybody else for their political agenda. And in the article that I read from the paper on my show today, she said that this bill was put in place to battle Roe v. Wade. It wasn't put in place for anything else, any health conditions, anything like that. It was put in place specifically to battle Roe v. Wade. So I just wanted to call you and tell you and give you a little bit of information. And
what's your show? What's your show, fam? What's your show? Shout out your show.
The name of the show is The Political Guy, and it's on YouTube. Look up The Political Guy. Political Guy Terrence Atkins.
All right, appreciate it, fam. Appreciate it. If you know what that sounds like to me, thank you. That sounds like white woman versus white woman. White women versus like, I'm not saying, look, black women are gonna get caught in the crosshairs of all this. That's what happens in general. And I'm not talking about how you should feel about abortion, whatever. But don't tell me that this is white men coming down. And what he's saying is that she set this up. The white female architect of this bill. What he's saying is that she set this up so that the Supreme Court could overturn Roe v. Wade. It was set up to go to the Supreme Court so that they could 5-4 overturn it. That was the setup. And that ain't got nothing to do with just like, oh my God, these awful men. No, it's all of y'all in there together. She set it up. She's the architect. Then the governor, the female governor signed it. If y'all don't go on. 720, I'm coming to you. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hi, this is Joseph from Aurora, Colorado.
What's going on, Joseph?
Okay, I just want to get back to the basics. Slavery is the problem with this country. And you brought that out before, but how do white folks get so rich? Started with Indian land grab, Dawes Act, slavery, the most profitable business of all, tobacco, sugar, cotton, oil, whites gotta have it, Jim Crow laws, more money for them, new slavery, sharecropping, predatory lending, religious racism, the curse of Ham, labor unions, racial cleansing of American labor, white domestic terrorism, compromise of 1870. It goes on, and every rule they make is so they have the advantage. That's what's wrong with this country. And without reparations, we don't have a chance. But since you and Tone Talks have given us our identity, because we are America.
Yeah.
That's the truth. We are America. And thank you.
Thank you, fam.
Thank
I
you for
appreciate
that.
that.
And all the mistakes we made in the past, we're moving forward in unity and dignity, truth, justice, and correctness. We're coming.
All right. All right. That's what he say. He said, Tony, he said, we coming. He said, we coming. Yeah. Like, it is what it is. Like, I don't have anything else to say for people who are lying to themselves. Like, no, it ain't that way. And no, I don't know what you're doing. 901, I'm coming to you. 901, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hi.
Hey.
Hi. Yes, my name is Francine Johnson. I actually started listening to you when I lived in Dunwoody, Georgia, like back in, I guess, 2016. And, I was so enamored with Obama and all of that. When I had my baby, like a Veterans Day, his middle name was Barack. And I was like, if I had $400 right now, his middle name would no longer be Barack. So I'm just like over him. But I'm right on the Tennessee line of Mississippi, and they've also have a law banning abortion. And I saw an article yesterday or earlier today how Clarence Thomas just never really does anything, but this time what he did was, I guess he overturned some obscure thing which said something about Hyatt, and the thing was that it was unprecedented to do something like that and why would you do it? Had something to do with businesses or something like that with states. But what the author of the article was saying was that if he does this now, when Roe versus Wade comes, he'll do it to Roe versus Wade. Like it was a 5-4 split with this Hyatt a past thing that happened like in I guess the 70s or 80s, and then they were like, oh, so this is what he's getting ready to do. So when Roe versus Wade comes up, then he's already made a precedent of just kicking out whatever was constitutional.
Yeah, he set the stage for it already. I saw that arc. I didn't get a chance to read it though, but he's already set the stage for like how this is going to play out.
Yeah, he set the stage. He set in the stage. And then another thing was, I don't know if you know, it's this company or organization called the Black Tradesmen, and they put out an article that I just saw today about how in the construction business they have actually, if you're on marijuana, you out of the construction business. They do drug testing and all of that. You're just out. Yeah. But what they've done with opioids was, if you're caught with, if your drug test is positive for opioids, they're going to do everything they can to make sure you keep that job.
What?
Yes, they're going to do everything they can. They have resolutions and things to help you. If you're on opioids, that you're going to keep your construction job. But if you're on marijuana, you're out.
So opioid is a disease.
Always been that way.
But that was a great article, and I put in the newsletter too about how white people who are addicted to opioids, they normally get treatment, and black people don't in terms of like a pill, and that's partly goes to money too because it's expensive, and there's a law that they don't have to like give it to you at a certain rate or whatever. It's so awful, but it goes counter to what you said. Yep.
And so I've been like trying to, get my little, just a very rural place that I returned to Tennessee, my hometown area, and we're 68% of the population. But they do not have data on the 29. They don't break demographically down the 29. Well, they break down where their wages or incomes are, and they're like 40 Asians and American Indians in our community. 40, like total. They have what they make and what their degrees are. And they have white people, so they have, but they leave black people out. Now, we have 2 big prisons in our county. One is one is in the city, where it's at 68%, and the other one's right out. There's 2 big prisons, and there's 29% poverty. But I've been going all over Tennessee and trying to look at everything, trying to figure out, well, how do you where's the breakdown on the poverty? Like, you have demographic on the 40 Asians and American Indians in our community. There's just 40 of them. So, I mean, it's just not even on the chart where black people are. We have just as many college degrees as white people almost. And they break that down. Now, the Asians and the American Indians, now they're 100% on everything. They got all the degrees, that's who they are. They come to our community to, kind of prey on us. They're not competing with other white people. They are competing with us. They don't get to compete with the white people. The white people, they got their stuff, their farms and their rural areas.
Well, yeah. I mean, and competing with us. Competing with us is like shooting, apples in a barrel or whatever. I mean, it's always been, that's why it is. I understand what you're saying. I gotta let you go to try to get to another caller real quick. But yeah, and they make it difficult. Like what the caller trying to say to, like, what happens is kind of like what happened with the national data. The way you kind of make it difficult to kind of get and maneuver and all that stuff. It's a wild, wild world, fam. It's a wild, wild world. I'm going to my next caller. I am going to 804. 804. What is your name? Where you calling from, and what's on your mind?
Yes, I'm Ben from Central Virginia.
What's going on, Ben?
Oh, I'm hanging in there. It's I'm glad you have a channel. I'm glad I found your channel. I guess I'm sort of new to your channel, and it's been an education. I used to be somewhat of a small, low-level political operative, but it's still very informative listening to your show, and you break it down to the simplest terms, make it so that pretty much anyone can understand. And it takes a great deal of sophistication to do those sorts of things, to break down those sorts of concepts to individuals, and I certainly commend you for that.
Thank you.
No problem at all. Now, I heard the last gentleman talking about having a sort of a support sort of channel for ADOS. I imagine, is that something you don't mind individuals doing if they?
I don't mind individuals doing individual advocacy. Like, the thing is, I expect, like, I'm actually kind of proud and happy that people are, like, starting YouTube channels and they're talking about it, because there's, and they're doing this and advocating in a way like they may have something for their own community. So he's told me something I didn't know about Alabama. So he's doing a local show about Alabama politics. Like, I don't have a problem with somebody doing a show or that show cropping up or whatever. I think it's good. I think having a robust ADOS community that's doing advocacy and politics online, I don't think that's a bad thing. And if I played a role, I hope, in causing like this kind of burgeoning rebirth of ADOS politics online and Facebook or whatever, I'm okay with that.
Okay, fantastic. I've done a little research on my own. I was thinking about starting a little lightweight channel. Just see how it goes.
Okay, fam. I wish you good luck. I appreciate you. I appreciate you calling in, because I think the problem is we haven't done enough politics, right? We haven't done enough politics. So if he's talking about, there's no way for me to know. I never would have known that the lady in his district, his congresswoman, his state lawmaker was one who crafted. That's a local level. Like, there's kind of like this rebirth. People are making videos. People on YouTube. I think that's a good thing. Like, I think that's a good thing. I think the only thing that we all have to do is, as everybody's in this space, is like stay anchored in data. Like, data is the thing that keeps you on the right road. And so as long as you kind of stay anchored in data, whether it's your local data or whether it's national data, I think that's the pointer. That's your compass. You know, because it's easy to say something, and even if you're right, somebody take it out of context and say, aha, you're this or you're that. If it's anchored in data, it's kind of hard to aha me, because I'm right. Right? Like, unless you have a problem with the methodology, then we can talk about that too, but I'm right. So I think as a compass, people should just kind of make sure they try to stay anchored in that data. But I think this kind of awakening is good. So I'm going to 860. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hello, Yvette. This is Alicia again, calling from Hartford, Connecticut. I don't know if you remember me.
Okay, I remember you.
Hello?
I'm here.
Oh, yes. I just wanted to call in. I am a millennial. I'm from the west side of Chicago, and I just wanted to call in and tell a short story about me growing up during the drug war on the west side of Chicago in 1996. I have been shot at ever since I was 6 years old, all the way until I left Chicago. And I remember drive-bys. I remember running away from cop cars, running away from black cars, and me and my family almost died as a result of the violence in my city. I have lost uncles to the crime bill. I have a lot of black men in my family who did not go to school as a result of it. So it is a for real thing. And the more I see Joe Biden and the more I hear about black boomers supporting him, it's like my uncles they couldn't live a normal life as a result. And like, we were constantly living in fear. So I just wanted to tell that personal story of how it personally has affected me and my family. And so I just thank you again for making us, for giving us the data, because data matters. I bring it to Hartford. I know you told me that I should move, but like
I remember telling you, I was like, you gotta get out of there. What you told me?
People, I'm out here. I'm making art out here about this, about what's going on with Black American descendant of slave. My people knowing out here, I'm making sure we get what we deserve as best as I can, and I'm in a position to have some type of power because I'm lucky. I will admit that, and I'm telling the truth, not lying, but I'm making sure that the truth gets told through my art, through my truth, and I thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tone Talk, Sandy Garrity, all of you, and I'm continuing to tell my truth, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Thank you, fam.
Have a good night.
You too. Thank you, young one. I appreciate it. I appreciate you calling me. Yeah, I remember you were telling me all that awful stuff about Hartford. I was like, I don't know what you can do. That's a horrible story. You might have to go find family. I mean, like, ADOS family. Like, it's white. But yeah, I think, like, so many ADOS have these stories. Like, these are our stories, and we tend to just absorb them. Like, one of the things that we do too, like, I appreciate what she's doing in terms of I'm doing this, I'm expressing this, and active in my community, I'm active in my art. One of the things that we do too much is we internalize it, and not only internalize it in our individual self, but we internalize that in our family. So we turn that internal pain and everything we feel, and we destroy our lives and the lives of our families, as opposed to constructively putting that somewhere else, constructively taking that pain and that suffering and using that as fuel for your politics, not as something to destroy your community or your family. No, that's not how it's supposed to be used. So I think I'm going to my last call now. I'm going to 562. 562, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
This is Johnny Ace from Los Angeles, California. First time caller.
Hey.
I just want to say peace. I just want to say peace to the entire ADOS family. You know, now my parents are immigrants from Nigeria, so You know?
Ally are you?
Now, of course, but I'm still a staunch supporter of ADOS, even though I personally am not entitled to reparations. I will fight and die for those who deserve them to get them. So I'm with you 100%. But I did want to say something.
Sure,
I'm a Pan-Africanist, and I know how you feel about Pan-Africanism. You know, you say Pan-Africanism is dead. And, you know, the way I feel is that, you know, there's a fake Pan-Africanism going on that's against ADOS that attacks you and says, oh, no, like, you know, because you claim America, you're bad. Like, no, I'm not with that. You know, and honestly, I don't think that's Pan-Africanism, all right? My brand of Pan-Africanism supports ADOS and, you know, does everything to, you know, help you guys get what you deserve, all right? Because in turn, that'll help the entire diaspora. So I just want you to know, like, Pan-Africanism is with you. Only the fake one isn't, all right? So tell Equality to shove it up his, you know, I'm not even going to go there. You know, because, you know, people don't know I'm Nigerian, you know, by looking at me. And that means that, you know, I get treated the same way and I have to deal with a lot of the same stuff as ADOS in America do. So by making life better for you guys and getting you guys your checks and your reparations, you know, I really think that'll help, you know, me as well, even if I don't get it done. So I just want to say I appreciate everything you're doing. Screw Joe Biden, screw the Democrats, and let's get that check.
All right, fam. I appreciate you calling in. I always appreciate. I always appreciate because everybody love to run around here and act like we don't have no allies. And that's an interesting version of Pan-Africanism that supports this specific justice claim. But that's even if you were talking about, that's what it should do. Like if you were talking about, okay, what should it look like if you were designing Pan-Africanism? It should be like you should be like you support CARICOM and their justice claim, and you support ADOS and our justice claim, and you support this justice claim against colonialism, and you support like how is this thing though like there's going to be some global kapoof like of Pan-African, like there's going to be some global liberation moment. I don't even understand how that was supposed to work. So I appreciate the caller because you know if I were in Nigeria and Nigeria was like we trying to get some money for this colonialism, I'd be like, okay, get your go get it. And I wouldn't expect anything, but I would support it because it's the just and right thing to do. And I would support my textiles if I was living in Nigeria to be paid, you know, to help. If there was a lawsuit or something had to go to the world court, I would support my textiles being paid to go and get that money for the country that I'm in. And it just, I don't understand how people don't want to do that. So fam, we are at the end of the show, fam. Please do not forget 23rd, May 23rd. It's coming up fast. When affirmative action was white is what we will be reading. Please hit that like button, fam. Please hit that like button for me. Before you go, before you run out, before you run off and scatter off into bed with your chamomile tea or finish your Coca-Cola or water or whatever little libation you've been drinking, please hit that like button for me. That'll be great. You can also go to donatebrown.com. You can go to patreon.com/ycarnell. Also hit that bell if you have not hit that bell so that you get notified. You can go to subscribetobrown.com and add your email. That is perfectly free. You can also subscribe to the newsletter. That is that's $2 a month. I send out a newsletter every Sunday for links that you may have missed during the week. You can do all of that good stuff, and you can share and like, and you can subscribe if you have not subscribed to the channel already. So you can do all of that stuff, and all of that stuff is wonderful, and it is appreciated. And I am happy once again to have gotten together with the Breaking Brown fam. I'm sorry I had to go do Joe Biden 2 times in a week, but it really annoyed me what he said, so I had to get into it, fam. So everybody get some rest. I know for those on the East Coast, we're heading up on the midnight hour. People got to go to work. People got stuff to do. So I'm going to get off this phone. Get off this YouTube. Get off this phone. See, I'm going to get off this YouTube so everybody can go do whatever they need to do. Some of y'all will see it tomorrow or whatever. And so you can see it at your leisure. So fam, get some rest. We will talk soon. Keep doing your politics. Thanks, callers. We had some good calls tonight. I appreciate it. Bye.